Konbawa. Michael R. Pence was born in Columbus, Indiana on June 7th, 1959, into a family that epitomized the American dream, instilling in him values of hard work, faith, and family. You might be interested to know that Mr. Pence and I began our political careers in the same manner, as elected presidents of the Columbus, Indiana North High School student body. That is where my political career ended, however, and Mr. Pence's clearly took off. After graduation from Hanover College and Indiana University School of Law, he embarked on a multifaceted and highly distinguished career in public service, beginning with his law practice, leading the Indiana Policy Review Foundation, and establishing a weekly TV and radio broadcast show on public affairs. He served 6 terms in the U.S. House of Representatives, championing limited government and fiscal responsibility. In 2013, Mike Pence was elected the 50th governor of Indiana, focusing on tax cuts, job creation, education reform, and infrastructure investment, all while maintaining fiscal responsibility. His accomplishments in Indiana led to his selection as the 48th Vice President of the United States in 2016. Vice President Pence's conservative philosophy, inspired by Ronald Reagan, led to his founding of Advancing American Freedom, which continues to advocate for faith, family, and liberty as foundational American values. Of direct impact to all of us here this evening, Indiana Governor Pence quickly grasped the importance of the Indiana-Japan business and cultural relationship. He personally led Indiana in the promotion of Japanese foreign direct investment. During his time in governor, in just 4 years, there were 55 major new projects of Japanese manufacturing plants and expansions. This is an incredible record. Many of these companies are represented here this evening. As governor, Mike Pence attended and spoke at many Japan-America Society of Indiana programs. JASI has deeply appreciated the opportunity of working with him and assisting with the state's Japan investment trips. Governor Mike and First Lady Karen Pence have been enthusiastic supporters of JASI through the years, and for this we are very grateful. Vice President Pence played a pivotal role in strengthening economic and security ties with U.S. allies such as Japan. He has continued to confirm the Japan-U.S. alliance as a cornerstone of freedom in the Asia-Pacific region and in the world. Perhaps most important of all, while in office, Vice President Pence fulfilled his oath of office and exercised his personal convictions in defense of our constitutional democracy. In doing so, he established Indeed, in doing so, he established himself among the most important patriots in our country's history, setting an example for our country and for the entire world. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my sincere pleasure to give you the 48th Vice President of the United States, Michael Richard Pence.
Well, thank you, Harold Forrest. Thank you for that overly generous introduction. Thank you for teaching me something I didn't know about Harold Forrest. He was also senior class president at Columbus High School. And Harold, I'm just so grateful to you, grateful for your career, grateful for your love for Indiana, and deeply humbled by your words. Let me just say to all of you, konnichiwa. Wonderful to be with all of you tonight at the Japan-American Society of Indiana's 2024 Gala. Just had to do that to Pete. Pete, thanks for a great night today. And how about another round of applause for Teresa for putting together this record evening? What a great crowd. Really is great to be here to celebrate with all of you what has been unfolding in Indiana. For 36 years, JASI has literally embodied the deep and enduring friendship between the United States and Japan and proved each and every day that all roads lead to Indiana. And so we thank you for that. We truly do. I'm especially honored to share the podium tonight with the Consul General of Japan in Chicago, Yanagi, or as he preferred that I call him, Yoon. Thank you for your inspiring words tonight. Thank you for your leadership and your commitment to the state of Indiana. We're truly grateful. And finally, it's a particular joy to be here tonight with the former First Lady of Indiana, former Second Lady of the United States of America. She is a woman of extraordinary capabilities. She was a school teacher for 30 years. She was an advocate. She's an author. You will learn before tonight, if you didn't know, she's something of a singer. And also, she served as a diplomat. I'll never forget during our time in the White House when Prime Minister Abe, Mr. Consul General, was visiting Washington, D.C. Karen was called upon to entertain his extraordinary wife, Aki Abe. And Aki, as near as we could tell, didn't speak English very well. Okay, she didn't speak English at all. So she came to the Naval Observatory, the home of the Vice President, and my wife rolled out the red carpet, and by all accounts, as much hospitality and warmth as Karen showed to her, it was a little bit uncomfortable. The two of them were still getting to know one another, but Karen heard that Aki loved dogs, as did the late Prime Minister, and so she immediately called in our Australian Shepherd, Harley, and one of my favorite pictures of our time as Vice President was the First Lady of Japan on the floor rubbing the belly of our black and white Australian Shepherd. So, in fact, my wife has never stopped all of her calling to service. She'll actually be back here in this very room. She's formed what's called the Hummingbird Charitable Foundation. It's going to host its first annual luncheon right here in the Indiana Roof Ballroom in March of 2025, supporting Indiana charities, just as she did when she was First Lady. So you all give me a couple of rousing round of applause. Would you thank the greatest Second Lady the United States of America has ever had, Karen Pence, everybody. You know, since the early 1980s, Indiana has stood as a shining monument to the enduring bonds between the people of Japan and the people of the United States. I found the Consul General's words particularly moving in that regard. And it's true. I've lived it in my lifetime. I've witnessed it, just in the same way Harold Forrest just described, in ways he's played such a personal role. So I came here tonight to really deliver two messages. Number one is simply to express my personal gratitude. And secondly is to speak to the leaders in this room who understand how vital the relationship is between the United States and Japan during these difficult days. Express a word of encouragement to you about a message that I think we as Americans ought to be delivering. But first off, let me just say I came here tonight to say, arigato. I'm proud that even Pete remembered that when I was governor in 2013, the first foreign trip that I took was to Japan and to only Japan. I need look no farther than Teresa Kolzak to help us put together a great trip. Karen and I traveled with some of you that are in the room today. It's an extraordinary experience. But Teresa knew that I'm a small town guy, not particularly cultured in the ways of the world. And so Teresa sat me down and she explained to me the culinary habits in Japan. I don't think I did particularly well, but I did my best. But that cultural training, etiquette, protocol, there's just nobody finer. I'll never forget, Teresa, when we went to Ota City, where one of my predecessors, Indiana Governor Bob Orr, had actually planted a small black pine in the Gunma prefecture. I expected to see a small pine tree when I got there, but kind of reminiscent of Governor Orr himself, I remember arriving to this towering pine tree and being able to plant a small and frankly very diminutive tulip poplar, which I hope to this day on your next trip over, you can see how my tulip tree is doing next to Governor Orr's tree. 2015, I'd returned to Japan again with JASI's help, and by that time, I'm deeply humbled to say, because of the generosity and the confidence of businesses so well represented in this room, we saw 55 new or expanded Japanese projects, and I just have to say it again. Indiana is the #1 state in America for Japanese capital investment per capita, and we're proud of it. Now, no one could have predicted, least of all me, that JASI's training would come in handy in my next job. I'll never forget the day the phone rang and we were asked if I wanted to be considered to be the Republican nominee for vice president, whether I wanted to be considered. We were out at the governor's cabin, which is in Brown County, Indiana. Some of you have been down that way more than once. And our daughter Charlotte, who just gave us that first grandson this week, our daughter Charlotte looked at me across the couch, and Karen and I were a bit shaken to get an outreach from the Republican nominee for your party to be considered as a running mate. I'll never forget, my daughter looked at me and said, "Well, Dad, we all saw this coming." Only like a daughter can say, right? The truth was, no one could have predicted, least of all me, that the training and the experience that I received in building relationships with Japan as your governor would put me in a position to help lead the effort to forge not only a new trade framework the Consul General talked about, but also to work very closely with the late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. It was truly one of the highlights of my time in office. You know, you have the opportunity to meet world leaders in the role that I was in, but in several cases I actually came away feeling that I had made a friend. And I want to say to all of my Japanese colleagues and friends in the room, my deep respect for Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and my enduring sadness at his tragic passing just 2 short years ago. We spent a considerable amount of time together around the Olympics. 2018, you may remember in Seoul, South Korea, in 2018, it seemed to be something of an international moment. North Korea had decided to send a delegation, including Kim Jong-un's sister, to represent them. It was a public relations effort. Some other leaders around the world weren't quite as comfortable with the strong stand that we were taking against North Korea's provocations and aggressions. But I'll never forget Prime Minister Abe. He stood there right by my side through those opening ceremonies of the Olympics. And if I could detect it, maybe you can look up a picture of it, I think he was smiling the whole time. We stood strong together. And he was a man who stood for freedom, and I think personified all that's best about the relationship between Japan and the United States. Would you join me in remembering the life and service and legacy of the late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, my friend? So I came to say thank you. The Bible I read every morning says, if you owe debts, pay debts. If honor, then honor. If respect, then respect. And I first wanted to pay a debt of honor and respect to all those that I've mentioned, including all of you in this room, for the commitment that you've made to the people of the state that I love and to the United States. But my second message is simply this. We gather at a time of great uncertainty and growing discontent around the world. Face the lingering effects of a pandemic, an inflation crisis in this country launched by runaway spending in our national government. We face a growing crisis of confidence, it seems, in political leaders, the media, and in democratic institutions. I think the essential question facing the United States and the free world is this. Will we continue to champion freedom, free markets, a strong defense and robust alliances, or will we turn our backs on our friends in the name of isolationism? The Consul General just said this, but in the generation since World War II, a consensus emerged across the West that the United States must embrace our role as leader of the free world, and so we have. But the truth is now, here in this country, a new wave of isolationists say that America should retreat from our leadership position in the world. We should turn inward. We should focus solely on our domestic concerns. But isolationism will not make America more prosperous. Isolationism will not make America more secure. In fact, I believe isolationism would only put our nation and the world at greater risk. If America were to give in to the isolationists today and step back from our leadership role, it would only create a vacuum. Scientists tell us that nature abhors a vacuum. I have no doubt in my mind that Russia, China, North Korea, Iran would be more than happy to fill it in ways that would remake the world in the image of dictatorships. More totalitarian, less prosperous, more antagonistic, less concerned with human rights. A world in which all of us are less free. That's why I truly do believe we must all say, at gatherings like this and all across our nation and yours, that America and Japan must speak with one voice, that we will always stand together for freedom. But I come tonight among so many distinguished and accomplished business leaders from both of our countries. Make sure that you know that this emerging strain of isolationism is even making its presence felt in our domestic business dealings, to the detriment of workers, business owners, and investors alike. I speak tonight, of course, about the Biden-Harris administration's efforts to block Nippon Steel's acquisition of U.S. Steel. Unfortunately, my old running mate has also adopted the same misguided position. Now, I've pledged to stay out of the presidential campaign, but on this I cannot be silent. I believe that President Biden, Vice President Harris, and former President Trump are making a grave mistake in opposing Nippon's acquisition of U.S. Steel. And here's why. First, the deal is a win for everyone involved. Nippon has offered $15 billion for U.S. Steel. That's 40% more than the share price, and its second highest bidder has offered less than half of that for U.S. Steel. I mean, U.S. Steel has a deep history in Indiana. I hardly need to tell the people in this room. It's a proud tradition, but they've faced great hardships and difficulties on a global marketplace for steel. And U.S. Steel has said that this is a do-or-die investment for this 120-year-old company. If the deal's approved, their factories here in Indiana and in Pennsylvania will remain open, receive billions of dollars in upgrades. But if the deal's not approved, steel mills will close. Thousands of workers in this state, in Pennsylvania, and across this country will lose their jobs, good-paying jobs. And the great American Rust Belt will once again earn its name. You know, I think you can be against this deal or you can be for the American worker, but you can't be both. I'm told that Nippon has even offered to leave in place existing labor contracts with American unions, but the unions have balked. In fact, now the Biden administration is on the verge of shutting the deal down, ostensibly to appease union leaders. I was actually told that administration officials admitted they were putting politics over prosperity. They told Japanese officials not long ago that it was necessary, quote, to win United Steelworkers' support for the November election. And for his part, Former President Trump often talks about putting tariffs on foreign companies so that they will invest in America and build factories here. And now Nippon Steel is prepared to do just that, investing billions of dollars to build up U.S. Steel's facilities. If President Trump wins election back to the White House, I hope my old friend will actually see this deal as a victory, that it is, of Japan investing in America and creating jobs in America. But if the deal falls, regardless of the administration responsible, it will be a travesty for American workers and communities throughout the Midwest. More factories will close and thousands of good jobs will disappear. Now, make no mistake about it. Policymakers have a duty to protect American industry from malicious foreign actors. But that's not what's happening here. Japan is one of our most trusted, reliable, and beloved allies. It's a nation that shares our commitment to freedom, to free markets, to the rule of law, to democracy. In the face of growing threats from China, Japan has stood shoulder to shoulder with the United States of America, and it's time for America to stand again with Japan. Now, some that make the bogus argument that this deal would somehow threaten our national security. But that argument ignores a much larger, more dangerous threat to our national security. China now produces more than half of the world's steel. Russia is also producing at levels that rival the United States. Meanwhile, America is falling behind. If the Biden administration blocks this deal, it won't be protecting our national security. It'll be playing right into China's hands. Nobody wants to see this deal fail more than the Chinese Communist Party. Right now, China is intentionally flooding the world with cheap steel, selling at a loss to grow their market share and strangle producers in other countries. If China succeeds in destroying the U.S. steel industry, they hope we will be forced to rely on them for steel that we need to build planes and ships and other weapons and military needs. Let me be clear on this. America must never be forced to beg China to provide the resources we need to provide our national defense. On the flip side, partnering with Japan will also further isolate China, strengthening the steel industry in a better position to protect ourselves and our allies. I just must tell you, having traveled the world, having met the leader of China, having met the leader of Russia, having met the leaders, friends, and strong allies alike, this is an important moment. It's a test. And at this time, both political parties are failing. But I have hope when the elections pass, that better judgment will prevail. Japan is a trusted partner. It's a country that is home to tens of thousands of American troops deployed to defend against our shared threats in the Asia Pacific. If we're prepared to fight and bleed together, should we not also enjoy the fruits of peace and prosperity together? For our mutual security, for our prosperity, American leaders and American citizens should embrace the Nippon deal for U.S. steel. It is a win for Indiana, a win for Japan, and a win for America. Thank you for hearing me out on that and accepting my gratitude tonight. You'll see my wife's enthusiasm before we leave here this evening for the relationship between the people of Japan and the people of Indiana. We're here on a very personal basis, and it's to say thank you But I hope you hear my heart on that other issue and use your own circle of influence to spread that message. And the truth is, all roads do lead to Indiana when it comes to the relationship between Japan and the United States. So don't underestimate the ability of you and your organizations and the communities you represent to give voice to this, to our leaders, not just in this state, but in this nation. You know, it's been said from this podium tonight that our nations are bound not just by treaty, by history, but it's by true friendship. The Consul General reminded me of one of my favorite Japanese words that I probably do as poorly with as the first two I tried. It's kazuna. I learned it on my first trip to Japan. It's the word that means something more than just friendship. It's bonds of trust. It's bonds of respect. And it's something the people of Indiana and Japan share. But it's because it's a shared foundation of values. I'll never forget on that trip to Oda City, I met a Japanese executive who told me very enthusiastically about how he made his decision to build a factory in southern Indiana. He said when he was making his decision, he had literally rented a car in Chicago and driven, Harold, throughout the Midwest, stopped in big cities and small towns. But when he arrived in this one little hamlet in southern Indiana, he pulled over, he got out of the car, he stopped in a diner, met people. He said, there was something about the people. There was something about the community. And he looked at me almost with tears in his eyes and he said, I felt like I was home. And I believe that's been the key in the last 4 decades for the way the relationship between Japan and the United States has been strengthened here in the Hoosier State. It's because coming to know the people of Japan, I understand, like Hoosiers and Boilermakers, the people of Indiana cherish family. We cherish tradition. We cherish integrity and honor and humility and service and looking after one another, as do the people of Japan. And that's why I understood that. A business leader told me he felt home. So I just want to thank you all tonight for making that a reality. And to tell you that I believe the work of the Japanese American Society of Indiana has never been more important. Never been more important to build the ties that bind in a world that seems to be becoming more dangerous by the day. Now more than ever, we should be building on a foundation of trust and friendship and kazuna as never before. Because I truly do believe the future belongs to freedom, and America and Japan will lead us there. So help us God. Thank you very much. Thank you for having Karen and I with you tonight, and God bless you all.
Well, don't go too far away, Mr. Vice President. And Teresa and Boilermaker Harold, if you could make your way to the stage as well. We're rounding third base. Ohtani's fixing the score. By the way, I did check the Dodgers score, not during Vice President Pence's speech, but during Harold's. And the Dodgers have a run on the board, and guess who knocked it in? Ohtani-san. So we now turn our attention in this bottom inning to another very special segment within the program, the presentation of JASI's Bridge of Friendship Award. Japan-American Society's Bridge of Friendship Award honors individuals who have dedicated and distinguished themselves in the advancement of the Indiana Japan-U.S. relationship. The award was first presented, some of you may remember, in this very room to Mr. Morita, the founder of Sony Corporation, in 1992. You'll find the full list of recipients in your program. Now, ever since Mike Pence served as governor of Indiana, we've been planning, or fixing, as we would say, to award him JASI's Bridge of Friendship. But then, as Charlotte sat on the couch, he got that call and was whisked away to a higher calling, and we missed our opportunity. So we're so thrilled to have him back tonight. I had the privilege of traveling with then Governor Pence and Mrs. Pence and his wonderful family on their first visit. And if you would have heard, and you just got to see a piece of it, if you would have heard and seen the way he connected with the Japanese people. Lots of people talk about investments, and that's all great. But the way he connected with them, and they connected with him on a personal basis, talking about common work ethics, common cultures, common dedication to family. It was jaw-dropping. So, Mr. Vice President, having you here with us again now, among so many friends in the Japan-America community, it's our privilege and our honor to award you JASI's Bridge of Friendship.